Welcome to the Cashflow Project podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Welcome to the Cashflow Project podcast. I'm your host, Steve Fieros with Tri-City Equity Group. Today, excited, we've got Dave Wolcott on the show. So Dave started his career by serving the country as a captain of the Marine Corps. In 2000, he and his wife bought triplets into the world. They didn't buy them, they brought them into the world, which inspired him to challenge traditional financial planning advice. Today, and I'm sure a lot of you, for our listeners too, right? You have kids, that kind of changes the game. And you typically have to think more into the future anytime that happens. But today, Dave's an author, he's a podcast host himself. He's the founder and CEO of Pantheon Investments and is more passionate than ever about helping entrepreneurs build wealth by passively investing in superior real estate and alternative assets that provide predictable cash flow, tax efficiency, and upside potential as a reliable alternative to the volatility of the stock market. We'll talk a little bit about his holistic wealth strategy and some of his books as well. But Dave, welcome to the show.
Steve, really grateful to be here to connect with you and your audience.
Yeah, no, excited to have you on. Appreciate you jumping on. And I know it's going to be a great episode. Before we dive into a little bit about what you're working on now and how you're providing value to the marketplace, how'd you get started into real estate? Obviously, you served us, and thank you for your service in the Marines. I know for a lot of folks, that can be their entire life. But did you start your career even before going into the military? Was that something, hey, I'm a military family, we're going to do this and I'm going to retire and just lifelong military guy? Or how did you transition into kind of the financial space? Give us a little bit of your background.
Yeah, for sure. No, it was interesting. I was actually raised in a middle-class family in Connecticut, probably like a lot of the listeners out there. We really didn't talk about money much, right? It was really taboo to talk about money when we were investing. Dad was just always gone, working hard. And I was really taught that the recipe for success was go to school, get good grades, you're going to get a job, and life would just work out for you. So I started following down that path, and I knew I wanted to really challenge myself and serve my country with a higher purpose. Did the ROTC program in the Marine Corps, which was a phenomenal experience. I got to really travel the world, work with just some amazing top-notch people, and learn things that they frankly don't really teach you in school. Things such as leadership, integrity, and teamwork, right, at the highest level. And shortly after the Marine Corps, I transitioned into corporate America. And I really, Steve, I just really lost that passion, right? I lost that purpose that really drove me in the Marine Corps. And then at the same time, my wife and I started raising a family. We had an 18-month-old was our first. And then on October 24th, 2000, we literally had triplets and quadrupled the size of our family overnight. So if any of you out there are raising kids right now, you just know how challenging that is. And I can tell you that when I held 3 babies in my arms at the same time, it was the most profound experience that I ever had. And I was just looking at them and thinking that paternal instinct was coming out. I have got to provide for financial security for my family, right? I want the best for my family. And so the first thing I did was talk to my financial advisor. And all he could tell me was, hey, they've got great things called 529 plans for your kids. Just max out your 401k. You're going to do great, right? And it was literally right then at that moment, I just knew building wealth as a retail investor in the stock market was not the answer. So this launched me on this obsessive journey to really figure out how the top 1%, the top 0.01% are really building wealth. And keep in mind, this is back in 2000. Rich Dad, Poor Dad had literally just come out about the year before. So I started networking, creating relationships, looking under rocks. I started investing in raw land, retail, single family, multifamily, oil and gas, alternatives, all kinds of assets. And then fast forward 20 years, I built an amazing portfolio of diversified hard assets. But more importantly, I really developed this holistic wealth strategy, which is really a proven blueprint to really create wealth like the top 1%. And my mission at Pantheon and our book, The Holistic Wealth Strategy, is to help other people. How do you figure out this game? What is the blueprint?
Yep. Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah. And it is pretty interesting too, just this, you're giving a little bit of your background there, how much that changes your mindset. And obviously, most of us are not having triplets, but even just having kids, thinking generationally, I think that's usually a kind of a big shift for most people. It's okay. Hey, if it's just me, cool. I can do my thing. I can work for myself and whatnot. But I feel like, yeah, there's something happens when you're thinking about the next generation. Hey, how do I leave a legacy for my kids, for my grandkids? How does this last beyond me? We're not here forever. The older I get, the more I start to reflect on that. Obviously, that starts to fit into not only you and your strategy and kind of, hey, we can do something where, hey, not only can we benefit and I'm going to benefit, my family's going to benefit now while I'm alive, but we're also going to have things that we can leave on. So yeah, I would love to dive into a little bit more about your kind of your holistic strategy. Is that more just like a diversified portfolio? Is that different asset classes? The cool thing is too, is that we've got a lot of different asset classes out there and different types now. The exposure that we can get as investors is broader than it's ever been. But I'd love to dive into kind of how you approach and how you help guide investors along that journey.
Yeah, for sure. It's really an overall framework about how to think about your wealth. And it all starts with creating a vision for yourself, right? This is the number one biggest mistake most investors have is they don't actually have a vision or a wealth strategy in place. And if you don't have a target, you're going to miss every time. So we really encourage people to just sit down and say, if I were to transfer $1 billion into your account today, where would you be? What would you be doing? Who would you be with? How would you be spending your time? All of these things, and really getting absolute crystal clear clarity on what it is you're seeking in life. And what's fascinating is that there's really multiple forms of capital, but we all get hung up on financial capital, right? That's the biggest one. But we're using financial capital as energy to do the things that we want in life. We're trying to buy time so that we can have more time with our kids, right? Or we're trying to create the ultimate workday, right? Whatever that looks like for you. Or we want to create more time for creating exercise and things like that. So getting clarity on this is just so important, Steve, because then this is what helps you break through doors and get to the next level or manage the different cycles of the ebbs and flows of life and also investing, right? When you really feel challenged. But when you have this underarching vision behind you, you can really get there.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's the thing. So I think too many times, especially in the entrepreneur space, or all you hear is, oh, grind culture and just, yeah, everybody just you got to work to the bone. And I get it. I think we've all put in the work and put in the hours to achieve success to our businesses, but you can end up sacrificing so much if you get stuck into that long term. And just to your point, if you don't have a vision for your life, you can just stay there and burn out. And hey, your beautiful triplets and all your kids and your family, guess what? You'll never see them. And so it's, hey, what at the end of the day, what are you trying to work for? Yeah, no, I love that. That's something that our family has implemented years ago. Hey, let's create vision boards. What is it that the whole family can get behind, right? Not only just mom and dad, but the kids too. And then you involve them in that process. And then, hey, then the kids understand, hey, mommy and daddy got to work, or we're working on this project. We're under a deadline here. We got a conference going on, whatever. But yeah, no, I absolutely love getting clarity and creating that vision so that, hey, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Everybody can get on board. That's compelling, right? Versus,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Hey, I want $1 million in my retirement account or whatever your goal is. Sure. And then you hit it. Now what?
Exactly, exactly. And that's what happens, right, with wealth too, is people will reach different levels and they actually don't really feel fulfilled, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's 1 million, 10 million, or 100 million, whatever those amounts are as you go through the curve, you really don't truly realize fulfillment unless you've actually defined it. So that's really the baseline for this. And then we move into phase one, Steve, which is really, it's actually all about you, right? And it's understanding that you are your greatest asset on the balance sheet. So, how can I now create goals and habits that support that vision? How can I continue to invest in myself, right? With all of these different things, whether if I can bring 10 times the energy, right, to my family, to the work that I'm doing, to my clients, right? All of these different things, right? You're going to yield the biggest ROI possible. I spend over 6 figures a year on between masterminds, coaching, my health, right? All these different things, constantly investing myself. And that's where I realized the biggest returns. And if you look at people, it's like, what is the difference between an Elon Musk and someone that you went to high school with who might be in the same town, right? Doing the same job with the same circle of friends? It's all mindset.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I often use that comparison as, hey, Elon's got the same 24 hours that I do. Okay, he's a brilliant guy, but we have the same time allotment. So what is it that I'm missing or any of us is missing, right? If we're not achieving the things in our life that we want to have, even just maybe a couple of rungs better than where we currently are, right? And it's okay, this is where you stop and examine. Hey, he's got a big vision, right? He's trying to get to Mars, right? I think he's trying to have a population ready to go. And he's got a ton of kids. We were talking about kids earlier, right? But yeah, you often look to other people who are driven. Again, they're not just working to work, right? They have a compelling vision behind them. They've got a way to get there. They have a clear plan. Yeah. So no, that's absolutely foundational. And 100%. Yeah, I totally agree with you about you being your best asset. You'll always get the best return out of committing time and energy to yourself. Guys, that's a common recommendation I get to you for all of our listeners. Get rid of the TV. It's usually the one thing I have. It's usually a good start for a lot of people, especially if you're just getting started with it. I often use the imagery of, hey, you know what? The more time that you spend watching somebody else's, say a movie or a TV show or something like that, you're watching somebody else's vision up there on that screen. And so the more time you commit to watching their vision, the less time that you have to creating your own. And so that's usually a quick recommendation that I give. Hey, you know what? Just get rid of your TV. If you're not where you want to be at in life, get rid of that thing and get moving.
Yeah, love it. So that really sets us up for phase two, which is really understanding that there's actually 6 forms of capital. And so we talked about financial capital, really is the baseline. We all understand what that is. But there's these other dimensions in life that are super important: intellectual capital, emotional capital, physical capital, spiritual capital, right? These are the things that really create what I like to call holistic wealth, so that you can feel true fulfillment and be at ease in life, right? And feel successful in whatever the number is at in your bank account at the end of the day, right? If you don't have these other forms of capital, you're really always going to be struggling. And what's it all worth? So we want to really be able to recognize those. And then also, what I think is really cool is that there's other ways that you can work on your wealth plan, right? There were so many times, I can tell you, in my career of 25 years of doing this, where I was excited to invest in that next multifamily deal or the next cash flowing deal, right? I didn't have another 50 grand just laying around. That was going to take some time to build that capital. What did I do? I worked on my intellectual capital. I got my financial IQ smarter by listening to great podcasts like this. I was reading books all the time, right? I was also working on, my relationship capital and proximity, right? How can you get closer to people who have the best deals? You could be one relationship away from the biggest deal of your lifetime and not even know it, right? People don't even think about it that way. Or again, you might be in that mindset where I feel like, hey, I just don't have capital. I get it. I want to play this game. I want to build wealth. I don't have capital. Yeah, that's why Kiyosaki and others talk about things like using other people's money. There's actually lots of creative ways to structure deals and build wealth with other forms of money. So if you can figure out what your superpower is, your unique ability, right, and then put that to work, you can build these other forms of capital, which are really going to propel you to the next level.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I love that. And that's like, that kind of plays we're recording this at the beginning of 2026. If you're listening in, usually a lot of time around this time, like people are, hey, what we're doing New Year's resolutions and whatnot, but that's great. But it's also important to look back at, hey, what did your 2025 look like? You want more of that? You want it to be better. And it's one of the things I can look back at. It's like, wow, like the relationships in our life are incredible. We're people of faith. And so we're really involved with our church. We host local meetups here. So we're constantly networking with other investors. So no, I fully agree. And I love that you making mention of that. It's like, hey, you know what? The people component in your life is huge. And guess what? If you don't like, where you are, take a look at your circle around you. If you don't have a healthy relationship with your spouse, guess what? It doesn't matter how good the business is. So you got to commit time and energy. So I love your approach to that and building on these different forms of capital relationships and emotional again, because it's all necessary, guys. So Dave, I love that you're helping wake people up to that.
Yeah.
What's the next phase there?
Yeah. So in the next phase, phase 3, it's all really about learning and team building, right? And if you really want to scale, you have to create what I like to call a dream team around you, right? And how can we now build an infrastructure around our wealth, right? So we think about things like tax strategy. Your number one biggest expense on the personal side of your income statement or your business side is taxes. Do you have a proactive tax strategy that's actually mitigating taxes? And I can tell you, I've fired over 5 different CPA firms over the years. We've had Tom Wheelwright on the show. He's an awesome place to start and really understand that once you realize that the tax code is actually a series of incentives for investors and business owners, you can start to track your actions every time you buy an asset, every time you sell something. You're creating basically this beneficial area where you can reduce your taxes, right? So that is absolutely key to your strategy. We also are a big fan, and we help our clients also with infinite banking. I'm sure you've had some guests on to do that. And this is also about creating sovereignty and control, right? We saw about 185 banks just fold, right, the other year. But now if you have control over your capital, you're growing tax efficiently, you're non-correlated to the environment, you have some estate planning in place, and then now I can control capital to be able to have dry powder when that next deal comes up. That is so brilliant, right? So really thinking about this thing in its entirety. And then, of course, having proper estate planning and asset protection. So we actually run a virtual family office as well for our high net worth clients that really creates a business around your wealth, right? So that's the way you should really, regardless of what your net worth is, you should think about your wealth like a business, like your own mini family office, and create a team around that and infrastructure to support that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love that. And everything that Dave's talking about here, guys, is absolutely vital. And you may not be thinking about a lot of this, kind of depending on where you are in your investing journey. Hey, let this be a seed planted, or start with the end in mind, right? It's okay. Hey, Dave. Hey, Steve. I don't have money to have family office, right? That's okay. You know what I mean? Just have that on your radar, but have that intentionality, have that on your roadmap, right? In order to, when you build towards that, or you can even implement things into that, start early, right? Start with kind of that framework and that planning. And that's what Dave's trying to give to us here. So I love that. And taxes and all of that is so important. I thought I was the only one who had fired that many CPAs. I can't tell you how many you go through. And it's like anything else, right, guys? You're going to find people who are, let's say, traditionally trained, and you'll go to a CPA or some type of estate planning attorney or whoever, just to date, like what Dave's talking about. And then they may not be familiar with all of these aspects, right? Because that's not their clientele base. That's not the people that they're used to working with. Again, that's not the circle that they maintain. And you know what, you might be introducing new concepts to them and say, hey, I'd like to do this infinite banking thing. I heard about this on a podcast recently. I can't really help you out with that. Because it's a specialized product, right? And you've got to be in touch with people who are tracking what you're trying to do. Yeah, no, I love that. I love that you and your team there are helping people to navigate that. And like I said, at least putting it on their radar. Because if you guys have never, we've had prior guests, just to your point, on our show talking about that. But if you've never dove into, that's a very powerful strategy. I love the sovereignty piece as well, and how that factors into that. But yeah, just go do some study on that, and how you can be unplugged from the banking system. That there are ways to do that. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Awesome. So that ties us into phase 4, where now it starts to get really fun. And we actually talk about asset repositioning, because I've talked to hundreds, over thousands of investors, and everyone says that, oh, I've got like this old IRA over here, right? I've got a 401k with my company going on here. We're paying off our house here, right? And the reality is 95% of Americans have their capital tied up in 2 places. And it's government-sponsored qualified plans and entrapped equity in their primary residence, right? So what you want to do is start to look at, where is your capital today, and can I reposition it for a greater amount of velocity and efficiency? So a great example of that, it seems obvious, right? But let's look at a home equity line of credit. Yes, it was the American dream to pay off your house, right? But if you're following Dave Ramsey approach, maybe that's okay for you. It's not okay for everyone, but if you're more ambitious, you're looking for more, you can take out a loan at 8%. You could put it into something, into a different type of asset, right? That's growing, whether it's real estate or some other type of asset. Maybe you're making a 12% return and now you create an arbitrage. You've increased your tax deduction that you get, and you have another asset outside of your home that's actually growing. So just by being efficient there and moving capital around, you've been able to do that. Same thing with government-sponsored qualified plans. The problem is they tell you when you can access your money, how much you're going to take out, and it's who wants to wait till they're 65 before you start accessing capital. So things like a self-directed IRA, that's one option. We've literally even built a 401k exit calculator. I sold all of my 401ks. I never looked back, and I've tripled the money since then. So there's ways to be thinking about that, even though, by the way, that's the sacred cow, because you're going to pay a 10% penalty, you're going to pay taxes. But I'll tell you, Steve, I'd rather pay taxes on the seed and rather than the harvest, right? So really understanding that. And as a perfect example, so one of the funds we have right now is a private credit fund, right? And this thing is returning over 20% return. So if you're in a typical public equity structure, you're making 7, maybe 8% return before taxes, fees, and inflation. Now, and if you were to simply transition that into a self-directed IRA and then invest in something alternative, right, like this credit fund, you're now completely diversifying from the cycles of the market, and you're 3xing your yield on that, right? So there's a lot of creative ways to really reposition your assets to create greater yield with what you have today.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I would challenge anybody, hey, log into, let's say you have a 401k, right? You got some kind of retirement plan through your company. Go log in and check the account, check the historical performance of that. And you'll see it creeps up versus, hey, if you're able to earn outsized returns. And even like that, Dave talked about, hey, maybe you can arbitrage a potential deal, right? Earning 12%. Even just that 4% delta, right? That's a big difference over an extended period of time, let alone, hey, you can get 15, 18, 20%. And guys, that's not unrealistic. I know people get excited, especially who are new to the space. Hey, Steve, look, my bank's offering this high yield savings account. It's paying out 3%. What do you think about that? And I'm like, that's not even something that's on my radar. That's not a consideration. They brought up there the if you're not to me personally, if you're not earning at least 8%, guys, I don't even know if you're not earning 10%. That's a challenge. You're going to not be keeping up with inflation. The amount of money that they printed and pumped into the system, the amount of devaluation of the currency that we have, like you have to be in the assets. There's zero way that you can keep your cash, let's say in your account, at some joke of a high yield savings rate that you're getting fleeced. And again, we're just two guys talking on the internet. You're like, none of this financial advice, but hey, take this as lived experience here. You definitely want to look at other asset classes, other asset types, and other ways to invest your money. Otherwise, like I said, you're just not getting the returns that you could.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue, Steve, into the last phase, which is all about building massive passive income, right? So our thesis is really looking at hard assets that are really going to create this trifecta of a return. So not only do you want like an 8% yield or greater, but what we like is assets that will provide tax efficiency, passive income today, not at 65, but today, and then also some forced appreciation, right? Where you can have some lucrative upside on the back end. And then that way we get to have our cake and eat it too. And at the same time, you're actually reducing your risks. So if I was to invest in, say, an oil and gas investment, we just closed out a big oil and gas investment, and a lot of people don't realize you can offset active income with that, right? Which is huge. And then with those tax savings, you're probably 35, maybe even 40% of your investment has been saved rather than writing a check to Uncle Sam. So you get that like right away. Plus you have distributions, plus you're in an asset that's non-correlated, right, and growing. So we like to look at hard assets that will create that trifecta and all be non-correlated to the stock market, right? And one thing is people don't realize, if you think about the stock market and public equities, there's definitely a place for them, but understand where that fits for you in your portfolio, because most of the public equities are really linear based, right? Meaning that we're really just hoping for them to go up in value over time. And last time I checked, hope is not a great strategy, right? So I want to know that, am I saving on taxes this year? Can I get some cash flow out of this thing right now? And then can we grow the asset, right? And as you start to do this, you actually create this flywheel for your wealth, where you, on the capital side, you're creating more and more capital, you're reducing your taxes along the way, and then you start to create these passive income streams that before you know it, your passive income exceeds your expenses and you're financially free.
Yeah, no, and I would say too, and I love you talking about creating the flywheel there. Because again, you're going to have listeners that are, Steve, this all sounds great, but hey, I'm listening in. I'm in my mid 40s, and was it too late for me? This sounds like this would have been great 20 years ago, whenever I was just getting going and whatnot. But is this too late for me and for what I can do with my retirement savings, with my accounts? Because that's something that's possible.
It's such a great question, right? And we have so many people, and it's part of my mission, Steve. This is why I'm so passionate about this, because it took me so long to be able to get here. And I think people can completely shortcut this and do this in 10 years. Frankly, that is really our whole proposition to clients, is that you will achieve financial freedom in half the time or less of prescribed conventional planning. And it's never too late to really get into the game. You can start to diversify. You can use the assets that you have today to actually get into higher yield. You can improve your tax situation. If you're not at zero in taxes, you got a big opportunity right there. So that alone can save you massive money. And you start to make these steps. Let's say you can reduce your taxes by 10%. You increase your yield by another 8%. That's about 18% a year, and then compound that over the next 10 years. That's some serious money, right? Rather than this other game of just, hey, I'm making 7% over the long haul and then burning up my health trying to wait till I'm 65 to go live some other type of life. It's also a completely false paradigm. Right? Who wants to wait until you're 65? That actually comes from the industrial era, right? When we worked in factories and we had 8-hour days and things. We're in a completely different world now, and it's all about the performance-based economy. So how can you really live today and align your wealth to be able to support you for that?
Yeah, no, 100%. And so much can happen if you guys are just listening in. So much can happen. Dave's timeline there is, hey, within 10 years, massive things can at 100% agree. But I think you will see, if you implement some of these different things that we're talking about that Dave's kind of presenting there, you, within a very short period of time, you will see massive amounts of change, even in a much shorter time frame, that will encourage you. And then once you eyes are opened up to these different opportunities within 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, say 3 years, you're in the thick of it. And at that point, you just, man, where else you start seeing opportunity everywhere. There's capital everywhere. You start networking with the right people. You start looking at your asset repositioning. Hey, what's my return on equity? What's my ROE here? Oh my, I got tons of equity sitting in my house. Great. How can we deploy that and get a 20% return? That starts to change the equation rapidly. And once you start to see progress being made, boy, you start talking about that snowball, man. Dave Ramsey and all that, you mentioned him earlier. It's hey, they talk about this debt snowball and all of that. Man, you see that income snowball changes start happening in a rapid way. It is so encouraging, because then now, wow, I really don't have to wait until I'm 65. Man, this thing it's on the horizon. And guess what? That supercharges your effort. And now you're even shortening up that gap even more. So it is super exciting, and so much can happen, guys. So don't feel disheartened if you're not where you want to be. Implementing a framework like what Dave's presenting here through his 5 phases, I mean, it can be game changing. And even if you made some good decisions like that, how many of you guys knew that you could? Again, this is a real estate show. We're used to talking about fix and flip and long-term rentals and short-term rentals, midterm, multifamily, all that kind of good stuff. But Did you know you can invest in oil and gas? Right? What do you think all of this AI and all of the data centers and everything? Do you think that those are we don't have enough solar to power all that, guys? The world still runs on fossil fuels and oil, and we're a huge producer of it. And there's tons of it still untapped. So there's lots of opportunity out there, and you can be a part of it, right? But you got to know the right people. Again, you got to network at the right circles. I can guarantee your coworkers likely not investing in oil and gas or doesn't have a family office a referral contact that they can get you over to. Right. That's usually most people's world. I love what you're presenting, Dave, and thank you for opening the door and to our listeners about what's possible.
Yeah, you bet, Steve. Appreciate it.
Yeah, super exciting. What do you see? Is there anything new that you see, I think, on the horizon or kind of emerging markets or anything you guys are tracking? Obviously, AI is a huge topic now, disruption, oil and gas, like energy. It's a big deal right now. Is there anything that you guys are having on your radar that you're looking out for and as we enter into the new year and beyond?
Yeah, we've really been focused on private credit for the past 4 years. This has been a sweet spot for billionaires to find basically some nice cash flow in their portfolio. And we've developed one fund which has a bunch of diversity. It literally invests in over 15 different sectors and businesses. So just think about, we're in Florida, right? This is such a great example. We had a hurricane here last year, right? Or two, I should say. And a roofing company, he literally has 2 years of backlog in business, but yet he can't get funding for trucks and equipment to feed this backlog of business. If he goes to a bank, it's going to take him 6 months to get funding if he can even do that. We can underwrite him inside of a week. He pays a premium for that. So think of it more like hard money lending on the real estate side. This is on the business side. So now we're providing him access to funds, and then he pays us back first with funds that he has to receive. And yes, he's paying a premium for it, but now he can capture the business to that. So this is just like a phenomenal sector because the banks continue with their regulations to be tightening where they're lending. And so the alternative market to provide lending to growing businesses is just super strong. It's a great asset class that's, again, non-correlated to the stock market. We also don't have interest rate risk. Real estate does, as much as we love real estate. And we have cash flow. You can make 12% with quarterly distributions, 12 to 15%, or over 20%. That's compounded annually if you're looking for the growth on it, because the average loan is only 7 months in nature. So we get back that loan, and then as money comes back, it actually gets redeployed immediately into other loans. So the velocity of capital here is huge, and I think this is rapidly, the sector is actually growing well over 15% combined annual growth rate, and definitely an asset class I think worth keeping your eye on.
Yeah, no, I love that. And there's no, so like that, guys, if you're, hey, again, this is another reason to get rid of the TV, right? If you're listening to the mainstream economic forecast or the outlook, it's like they may paint a pretty negative picture, but that's the thing. There's no one market, right? Just like right now, Dave's in Florida, right? I'm in Hawaii. Guess what? If you're good with investing, hey, I want to go where my capital is treated best, right? So if that means that there's opportunity in Florida, guess what? Hey, Dave tells me he's got an opportunity, and that absolutely sounds like a viable business. We know that it's real, right? We know, hey, you know what? Storms come through. There's a lot of insurance money there. There's a lot of repairs that need to be made. Guess what? There is value that needs to be created right there in that market. The market in general, let's say the banking system, they're too big. They're not nimble enough to move quickly to service the needs of that small business owner. So that provides that opportunity, like how Dave was talking about, the private credit. It's amazing, right? Because again, now we can be nimble enough to be able to get in there and provide liquidity to that small business owner. Again, you're getting a return. It's a win-win. Now the customer is happy. They can get back into their house that much faster because they got a new roof on their place and they can move back in. They don't have to wait, right? So it's value creation all around, but you have to be able to be aware of those opportunities. Again, so this is all about networking. This is being in the right circles, being in the right rooms, listening to the right shows. So yeah, no, absolutely. And I love that. And Dave, what Dave is talking about there, that's literally just one opportunity, guys. This exists everywhere you look, right? There are little microeconomies and things that happen all over the place. So you should be excited, right? This year should be a year of opportunity, especially as you implement this framework implement these 5 phases, let's say, into your overall investing strategy, your life strategy, your life plan. And I think that's going to be incredibly impactful for you, your family, your grandkids, or your community. So yeah, excited to have you on, excited for what's in store for the future. Dave, there's a part of our show where we transition in what we call our fire round, just a little bit more a rapid fire, brief Q&A. Is that something you're up for?
You bet.
All right, awesome. What's the first question? What's the best book that you recommend? I know you mentioned Rich Dad Poor Dad earlier, but for us in real estate, right, that's the Purple Bible. Is there any other solid book recommendations other than your own, although you could? It doesn't have to be business. It can be whatever. You can be mindset, business, tax strategy, whatever you like.
Yeah, the current book I'm reading right now is by Steven Kotler, and it's all about like superhuman. So it's really creating how can you find that flow state, right?
Hmm.
That actually you're in Hawaii. This is perfect, right? Steven was actually a surfer, right? So when you're totally in the groove and just time stands still, right? And how can you recreate that from some of the most top athletes in the world to high achieving performers, right? How can you constantly try to find that flow state and be in peak performance?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's awesome. I'll have to check that out. I always love books that I have not heard of or not on my radar yet. So yeah, thank you. I'll check that one out. All right. Next question. What would you consider your superpower to be?
Yeah, my superpower is really meaningfully connecting with people. I love to just connect with people at a real deep level and see how I can create value. And then also, as part of that, just really taking complex information and then really synthesizing that down into something that's more simplistic for others.
Okay. Oh, very good. All right. Next question. You had a time machine and you can go back and visit 20-year-old Dave. What advice would you have for him?
Invest in yourself,
Yeah. Oh,
100%. Like we talked about. Yeah. Invest in yourself.
yeah, that's awesome. That's powerful. All right. Next question. What is the biggest lesson that you've learned over your career thus far?
The biggest lesson is really resilience and really understanding yourself. There's going to be cycles in your investing in life that you go through ups and downs, right? And that is really part of life. And sometimes it may seem almost overbearing. How many of us know people that, tragically, we have some friends we just found out, the same age, been in the same neighborhood for many years. She's has cancer and has 6 months left. There's countless examples of these different things that come upon you in life, but it's all really how you deal with it. So it's really just part of that yin and yang cycle, right? And understanding that it's a feature of the game. So can we be more resilient? So I'll tell you right now, if you haven't lost money in investing, you will, right? But understand that you'll actually become a bigger and better investor, right? And if you think you're not going to lose any money, you probably will not rise that high in terms of your investing career. And look at people like Bill Ackman, even Buffett, you name it, right? Look at BlackRock, right? They've all, some of the best financial minds in the world have actually lost money, but they've become a lot smarter from it. It's actually a learning lesson. And in fact, the gentleman who is actually Kiyosaki's one of the kind of the rich dad advisors was one of the gentlemen. He wrote, Keith Cunningham, who wrote the book, The Road Less Stupid. So another awesome book recommendation. And he lost several hundred million in real estate. And he calls that the most expensive university that he's gone to, right? So $300 million education is what he chalks it up to. And of course, came back and did so much better. So I think when you have a better understanding that there's going to be those peaks and valleys with investing, with your life, with those different things, you can weather the storm better and just really think of this whole thing as a game. Don't take yourself too seriously. Life is going to work out, but you really just have to have the right attitude and approach with it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. And again, a lot of this boils back to what you talked about very early on here in the different phases, right? It's, hey, you know what? If you've got a plan and you're intentional, you'll be able to weather those storms. You got that guiding light, that North Star that you're going to continue to push on. You've got the social capital that you've built up, the emotional capital, right? All those resources around you that will support when inevitably that deal goes sideways, you're going to lose money or whatever. It's just a part of the game, guys. But again, I will take that 10 times out of 10, versus, hey, I've got to work in the job that I hate for the next until I'm 65, right? Let me take the opportunity, fail forward, learn from the mistake,
Yeah.
learn from those opportunities that didn't go right. That's okay. Let's get back up. We'll try again. But you need that support system around you to help encourage you during those times, right? Because if not, oh, you know what? This investing thing doesn't work. I don't know what the heck Dave and Steve were talking about. This just doesn't work. No, it does work. Again, you got to have people in your corner that are rooting for you. Like, hey, you know what? Okay, let's try this. Let's dissect this. So what can we tweak for you so that we can do this better next time? But yeah, no, I love that. All right, awesome. Hey, if our audience wants to reach out to you, they want to learn more about what you guys have going on, what's the best way for them to do that, Dave?
Yeah, what I wanted to do for your audience, if they enjoyed the holistic wealth strategy, wanted to learn more, is provide a free copy of the book. So you could just go to holisticwealthstrategy.com and get a free copy of the book right there. Of course, it's on Amazon as well. And by the way, we do have all of the proceeds go to our charity as well, but which is a veterans charity, thefund.org. But yeah, if you want a free copy, just go to holisticwealthstrategy.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Definitely make sure, guys, go check them out. Go check Dave out. We'll make sure we put a link down in the show notes so you can go visit Dave and learn more about that and see how you can implement it. Guys, I truly believe this can be life-changing, game-changing. And don't think about it just for yourself, but all the people around you, right? If there are charities, if there are your community, your family, your coworkers, heck, if you're able to see some success, you reach back to one of your coworkers, and now they also don't have to work until they're 65. Game changing. Think about just the impact that not only you can have, but to the world around you. So, Dave, thank you so much for coming on and sharing and opening up, hopefully, some of our listeners' ears and eyes, and to some life-changing decisions that they can make for themselves. But I really appreciate having you on, and would love to circle back with you and visit in the future and see if maybe you got a new book out at the time. I don't know.
Thanks so much, Steve. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dave. Have a great one. And we appreciate you coming on. Aloha. All right. Awesome conversation with Dave Wolcott over at Pantheon and his holistic approach to investing. Really, it's more than just investing. Honestly, it's more of a life strategy, which is great. A lot of times we need it and we don't even know, right? And there's so many different opportunities for you to be able to go out and make massive changes in your life and go out, check out his book. You got your free copies. Go to his site, Holistic Wealth, and pick up your free copy. But guys, if you're interested in investing with us, you can go to tricityequity.com. You can learn more about us, the previous deals. We'd love to have a conversation with you and see how we can help impact your life. If you're local to Honolulu or Hawaii, or you're out visiting, if you want to connect with local like-minded investors, come join our monthly meetup, Honolulu Multifamily and More. We meet up every month. We've got so many incredible people that have come out over the years. We've been hosting those and have networked and connected with thousands of investors at this point. And of course, if you guys are finding value in the podcast, share, and subscribe. That's the only way we can get the message out to more and more people, impact more and more lives for the better. So we appreciate you guys. Looking forward to hopefully enjoying an incredible 2026. And we believe this is going to be your best year yet. So go out and take some action, guys, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Aloha.